Now, so we have discussed two motions, very popular among the majority of Canadians, motions, not bills, that have been voted down. But there is a actual bill on the table for universal Pharmacare that is also one of the most popular initiatives in the country. 86% of Canadians support universal Pharmacare. That's more than 77% of them say they are for increased coverage for Canadians. That should be a very high priority. This is Bill C-213, introduced by, once again, based Peter Julian. Once again, that is the MP from New Westminster, Burnaby, in British Columbia. And, you know, this is something that's extraordinarily popular among Canadians, and it is something the Liberals have been promising, as Jagmeet Singh pointed out, for the last 23 years, including in the 2019 referendum. Federal election. Every single party except for the Conservatives said we were going to have universal Pharmacare. The party in power said we were going to have universal Pharmacare. This is an actual bill, not a motion. This has actual very direct consequences. So if the Liberals end up voting this down again, that is it. The Liberals are nobody's friend. The Liberals are not your friends. The Trudeau administration, the Trudeau cabinet government are just filled with liars, political opportunists. That is true already. We can see that's true to a certain extent. But this was a promise that it's another one that they campaigned on, and if they fall through with it, it will be yet another broken promise by the Liberals. But unlike the wealth tax, unlike UBI, these weren't actually things that they said they wanted to do in the first place. So this is going to be really significant. That vote is happening, I think, in 3 days. Today we're Friday the 20th. I think it's Monday the 23rd where the vote takes place, but don't actually quote me on that. I think so. There's some more polling on it. 26% of Canadians say that they have had to pay for half or more of their prescription drugs over the last few years. That rises to 37% for households that earn under 50 grand a year. Canadians are twice as likely to have lost prescription drug coverage, which is about 14%, as they are to have gained it over the past year, which was 7%. More than 2 in 5 Canadians, that's about 45%, are concerned with their ability to actually afford their prescription drugs for the next in 10 years because of rising costs. Only a quarter feel very confident that they're always going to be able to afford to pay for them. So this is something that Canadians feel very passionate about.
And we're far behind the curve on this issue too, because I think Canada is one of the only or I forget in which group, it might have been G7 but we're far behind the curve as far as other comparable countries when it comes to providing pharmacare for our people. And this is something that is done worldwide, and Canadians actually pay very high costs, much higher than many other countries, not including the United States, because obviously we know what a mess it is over there. But
it doesn't do us any good to compare ourselves to that.
Yeah, but we end up paying some of the highest costs for prescription medication as well. And right now also, I want to mention, we're in a pandemic, and a lot of people have lost their job, or also many people, companies have cut benefits, which has severely affected people's abilities to be able to get their prescription medication, which is so important for so many people. And this is something that the Liberals, as of right now, based on what we've seen in conversation on the floor of the House of Commons, seem to not, it's looking like they're not going to vote in favor of, and it's looking like they're against it. So who's fighting for you?
Do they have specific angles for why they're against it?
Well, we can't afford it because of the pandemic, probably.
One of the biggest against it, once again, Adam Vaughan, Span of Fort York, which is my writings, MP, was speaking against parts of it where it allows provinces to opt out, and to a certain extent, I see where he's coming from. But the Liberal Party isn't working to help create a better pharmacare bill. Like we've said, 23 years that they've been claiming that they're going to introduce some sort of pharmacare, and we haven't seen that happen yet. So there, as of right now, there's very little faith in the Liberal government.
And on that point, by the way, all these three motions, sorry, all these three topics that we're talking about, the UBI motion, the wealth tax motion, and the Pharmacare bill, all NDP supported. They're not supported. They are all NDP crafted.
And two of them were proposed by Peter Julian. And I want to give a special thank you to Peter Julian, because he is someone... Julian. Seriously,
this episode is dedicated to Peter.
If you don't know, I haven't heard of Peter Julian. I'm not surprised, because he doesn't get covered a lot in Canadian media. But go follow him on Twitter and see, because he's one of the people who's constantly fighting for the people. He's always on the ground. These two private member bills are just another example of his tireless fight for the people. And I just want to give a special thanks to him, because it's seen, it's appreciated, it's felt, and he's someone that we really need. We need more Peter Julians.
Mm-hmm. He's fighting for you, unequivocally. He's fighting for you. Leah Ghazen is fighting for you. Jagmeet Singh is fighting for you.
Matthew Green is fighting for you.
The New Democrats are actually fighting for you, or at least the socialist wing.
And I want to point out also, that credit where credit is due also to the Green Party, because they've been strongly in support of the NDP on these bills, and credit where credit is due, because even though we've had problems with the Green Party lately,
and we will continue to have problems,
and we will continue, and there's reform that needs to be done, but it is appreciated to see that they are using what the power that they have, which is limited, to help support these motions. So I also want to give credit there as well.
Yeah, I mean, if only Liz Caris had won the Green leadership race, we would really be talking about a long-term strategic alliance between the Greens and the NDP, a real political socialist, concerted movement to actually, a concerted effort to actually gain significant and adequate ground in the House of Commons. I mean, there are so many writings in which the combined support of the NDP and the Greens would have actually won, but because they were both running, either Liberal or Conservative or whoever is in it, I suppose the Bloc would have gotten in. But if they were actually more aligned on their principles, in writings where the Greens are in whatever second place, the NDP candidate would drop out, and the vice versa would be true. We would actually increase leftist, seat holdings in the House of Parliament substantially, and we could actually start to make significant progress. I mean, the NDP has done a hell of a lot with the position they've had. They lost so many seats. They're reduced to what, 27? Is it? No, it's 24, I think, in the House of Commons. But because of the minority government by the Liberals, the NDP and Jagmeet Singh have actually had a lot of clout. I mean, they're the reason that we got CERB, I'm pretty sure. They were pushing for UBI.
Thought it out.
Yeah, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals were pushing for what has now come to pass, in strengthening the employment insurance system. And the compromise was CERB, right? So they have done a lot for us. They are fighting for us, and this is, people really gotta, a lot of working class liberals, a lot of working class conservatives really need to, like I say again, really need to realize that those parties don't fight for you. They fight for the powers that be.
And I think that, we have to highlight specifically who are the people who are fighting against you here. And I want to bring up something that happened. So I live here in Toronto in Spadina, Fort York, and my MP is I've mentioned him several times tonight, is Adam Vaughan. And I'm not a fan of Adam Vaughan, in case you haven't caught on, but last night there was an interesting interaction on Twitter between Adam Vaughan and MP Peter Julian, who introduced the bill. And Peter Julian had shared, a link to this motion, and Adam Vaughan commented, an act to enact to act, who gives a fuck? in the acronym WGAF, right? And this caught a lot of traction. There was a lot of criticisms against this attitude that Adam Vaughan has. And he later went on to claim that it was a typo. And he said he apologized for the typo, but not for his greater point. And I think that, first of all, it's a failure to realize why people were angry against him. But I want to bring to this dismissiveness from people like Adam Vaughan to the seriousness of this issue. You know, this laid back, like, really, like the NDP again with their protests and their slogans, as he likes to criticize. And this inspires me to, you know, share a story of something personal on the topic of pharmacare that happened to me this week, right? So I'm someone who I have ADHD, and I take I have a prescription for medication to deal with my ADHD. And I went to the pharmacy to get my medication, as I always do. And when I was there, they asked me for to pay a $40 copay. Now, $40 for a student like myself is a lot of money. So I had to ask for help from my parents, and I was able to pay the $40 copay and get my medication. And you get the receipt, and I checked the receipt, and what it says is that my medication, 1 month supply of my medication, without any insurance, and I'm lucky to be covered by my parents' insurance, but my medication would have cost $555 without insurance. $555. That's before the pandemic hit.
That's rent.
Yeah, before the pandemic hit, it was known that the average Canadian didn't have the funds for a $400 emergency. This is $555 every single month for medication that people like me need just to be able to function and get through the day and put up with a capitalist system that does not properly adapt to the needs of neurodivergent community. It does not. And this is completely unaffordable. And for those who will say, okay, well, you know, go get the generic. In this circumstance, because the medication I take, it functions on a time release. And the generic version of this drug has a lot of problems with the time release. Sometimes it goes too slowly and sometimes too quickly. And this leads to severe differences in how it affects people. And this makes it particularly bad to be able to predict how you will be able to function throughout the day. So it's something that my doctor and many doctors reject the generic option of this medication as an option. So then we're stuck with this version of a medication that costs so much money. And for people in the ADHD community, often we struggle to be able to maintain good long-term employment and to be able to save money. This poses a very specific challenge. And so when Adam Vaughan, who is my representative, the MP for my riding, dismisses this, it hurts me personally. And it hurts to know that, you know, I'm lucky right now that, you know, the extent of my struggle was a $40 copay, which was for a student still a lot of money, but that so many people, this is a real burden on them for so many people. And just for him to dismiss that, and for the Liberal Party to dismiss that, and for just waiting for so long for them to just implement pharmacare, it's not okay.
He's telling anybody in his constituency that might require pharmacare or require some, you know, any kind of medication whatsoever. He's telling them, "Fuck you." Basically,
he's telling them to go fuck themselves. Yeah.
Well, your concerns don't matter, and I'm not fighting for you.
Yeah. And I've never understood, like,
who gives a fuck? Who cares?
In Canada, you know, the first thing I tell non-Canadians when they're like, "Oh, you have free healthcare," it's like, yes, but
Yeah.
and like the one thing that's huge for me has always been such an annoying, frustrating point is the fact that medication is not part of universal healthcare, and it just makes no sense. It's like I can, I don't live in fear of needing to go to the emergency room because I know I don't have to pay for that, and that is a human right, and that's great. But I do live in fear of like developing illnesses, or like even just even just having to maybe have a surgery and then I need to go purchase, painkillers or something. Like I can't currently afford that. I don't have insurance anymore through my parents. So it just makes no sense that like we've all acknowledged for a few decades that like you should be treated by medical professionals for free, but we haven't decided that like when you need drugs to help you with that, no, sorry. Like
this doesn't even begin to touch on the fact that we don't cover mental health care, that we, like mental health care and therapy is effectively, in the vast majority of circumstances, a luxury. It is a luxury for the upper class to be able to deal with the system from which they so benefit. We don't have universal denticare, which is it is a vital aspect of healthcare. There are so many holes.
Even going to the eye doctor, like
exactly, vision.
It's like
there's a lot of studies about the effects of proper dental care on overall health. I mean, that's
it's directly connected to your cardiovascular health as well. There's so much evidence and so much support for those sorts of things, and we're still bogged into the conversation that we've been having for the last few decades, that the overwhelming majority of Canadians agree on, that we need universal pharmacare. And if we can't even pass universal pharmacare, how the fuck are we actually going to fix our broken Swiss cheese universal healthcare system that only actually looks like universal healthcare when you compare it to, once again, the feces infested dumpster fire perpetually burning in the United States, where a health concern is economic ruin.
And let me just mention too, like, this doesn't cost $500 to make. My medication, it doesn't cost that much to make. This is like I actually have I don't know how much phones cost nowadays, but I remember when phones were $600, right? And there's a lot of money in that. I just like, actually this phone right now, my phone, it costs $600 if you bought it outright. And I just want to mention, it's like buying a phone every month. You'd probably look at someone weird if they told you, you buy a new smartphone every month. But somehow that same price tag is okay with the medication that I need to be able to get through the day. Somehow that's okay. How is that okay?
There's a difference between drug dealers and drug dealers. Is effectively
it's a gross price gouging too. I mean, because like I said, it does not cost that much money to make this medication. There's no reason, there's no market forces that are, and for one thing, because within the pharmaceutical industry, there is no market forces competing. Like these are, they get their patents and are exclusive rights to manufacture certain things. So the market forces are not at play here. So it's a decision to charge this much money for medication.
Exactly.
It is taking
it's a conscious
advantage.
decision. Exactly.
It's a conscious
inhumane.
It's taking advantage of people. It's exploiting people, and it's not okay. And so, like this, who gives a fuck attitude.
Well, I mean, we've been
smash capitalism.
We've been disappointed with the last two votes, but this one is going to be a big one. So, we're going to find out. I think it's Monday. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's next. I'm almost positive it's next week. We're going to find out if we actually have the ability in this country to advance our healthcare system. And if not, all that is proof to me is that the perpetual juxtaposition between us and the United States is one of the primary factors that is preventing us from actually moving on from and fixing our system, or not because necessarily that it affects popular support for it, because clearly it doesn't. All these programs are
overwhelmingly popular.
Exactly, universally popular. But it gives an excuse to the powers that be to say, like, at least we're not them. You know what I mean? And so it's just a constant cop out. So we're going to find out soon if we have the ability to address some, at least, of the structural issues that are facing our healthcare system and our society. And we're going to see if this is going to be yet another broken promise by the Liberals.
I'm not optimistic, but yeah. Better world is possible.
There is no optimism. This isn't
And
2008.
necessary.
All aboard the Doomer Express.
When the vote happens, go check out the list of who votes in favor and who votes again.
Generally, it's going to be on party lines, though. It's if the Liberals vote against
No,
it.
yeah,
it's
but
probably gonna be
I just want people to see, you know, who's working for you, who's working against you. That whoever your MP is, go check out how they voted, and just remember that when the next election comes across, who was there fighting for you.
Hold them accountable for their actions, for their votes in Parliament.
I called my MP's office. I called Adam Vaughan's office. I went to voicemail, but I recommend, you know, seriously, call, email. It makes a difference. It really does make a difference when you call and you put pressure.
If they feel the pressure from their constituents, they are much more likely to apply that or to translate that pressure to their own party, and it actually does work. So it's a very good point. Get in touch with your MP and, you know, demand that they vote in favor to adopt universal pharmacare.